أهلا وسهلا بكم متابعينا الكرام في هذا اللقاء الخاص. أحد قدماء الطلبة الأفارقة الذين درسوا بالمغرب يعد سفيرا غير مسمى للمملكة المغربية، يحمل في داخله هاجس إفريقيا والتنمية والتغيير. عبر عن حبه للمملكة من خلال كتابه الأخير اسمعوا صوت إفريقيا Faire écho à la voix d'Afrique. في لقائنا هذا الذي نستضيف من خلاله ضيفنا بيتر بانيان أنامان سنتعرف أكثر على رحلته بالمغرب وكتابه الذي وقعه أخيرا بمتحف محمد السادس للفن المعاصر. أهلا وسهلا بك بيتر. أود بداية أن أحملك إلى رحلتك الأولى بالمغرب. كيف كانت البداية؟
Thank you very much. I'm a Ghanaian and I studied in Ghana. And there is this agreement between Ghana and Morocco where students from Ghana come to Morocco to study under scholarship, which is being championed by the MCE, Morocco Agency for International Cooperation. So when I finished school, personally, I had challenges in getting support to further my education. And I had a Moroccan scholarship to come to Morocco in 2005 to come and pursue my education in economic science and management.
كانت هذه البداية، وأثناء رحلتك إلى المغرب لم يكن لديك هاجس كيف ستجد هذا البلد، كيف سيقابلك المغاربة، كيف ستجد الأجواء بالمغرب؟
Frankly speaking, I didn't know much about Morocco then. Yes, I know Morocco was part of Africa in terms of geographical location, but I didn't know much about Morocco. And also, Morocco being an Arabic and also Francophone country, I knew it was going to be challenging. So my worry was about the language, how I was going to survive in my education with the French language in particular. So it was really a very big challenge for me. And frankly speaking, I was afraid. But then I took the challenge upon myself to come. And I never regretted coming to Morocco. And I'm very proud that I came to Morocco to come and further my education in Morocco.
نعم. الصعوبات التي وجدتموها في اللغة هي التي ربما دفعتكم لدراسة اللغة الفرنسية بجامعة محمد الخامس.
Yes, I wasn't the only Anglophone who came. I think per the program, we have students coming from different African countries, including students from Anglophone African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, and other Anglophone countries. So per the program, we have a year for French language. So all the Anglophones who don't, and other nationalities who don't speak French, normally spend 1 year in Rabat to study French before we go to our various universities to further our education. So though it was very challenging, but we managed to overcome it, and now we can at least express ourselves a bit in French.
هذه كانت من بين الصعوبات التي وجدتموها. بعد ذلك كيف اعتدتم على الدراسة هنا؟ أكيد ستجدون أو لا وجدتم طلبة أفارقة هنا وانشغلتم أيضا مع بعضكم، لكن كيف وجدتم الفضاء هنا بالمغرب؟ هل كانت الأجواء مناسبة لمتابعة دراستكم؟
I think during my French year, the first year in Morocco, that was where the challenge actually was, because coming from a background as a Ghanaian, and now coming to an environment where you have to study with people from different African countries with different backgrounds and different faiths. So it was quite challenging, but that also actually helped us to understand each other and learn from each other. That yes, though we are different in some ways, but we can learn from each other and live together. And today it has helped me a lot that it's easier for me to identify myself and work with people from different backgrounds, different faiths, and different parts of Africa. And that is what Morocco has done for me. Aside the academic knowledge that I got, it has actually given me the sense of Pan-Africanism, whereby I see every African as a family. Because of that environment that Morocco created for me to study here in Morocco. So yes, first year it was a challenge, but I left here and actually become an asset for me because with that I'm able to connect with people from different backgrounds.
في هذه الفترة عرفتم المغرب، عرفتم الشعب المغربي وعرفتم العائلة المغربية. كونتم فكرة، وكيف جاءتكم الفكرة لكتابة كتابكم عن المغرب بعد ذلك؟ يعني بعدما كونتم تلك الفكرة عن المغرب والمغاربة وجلالة الملك.
Yeah, I think my experience in Morocco and what I learned from His Majesty and Moroccans, and what I also heard others saying about Morocco motivated me to write this book, because I came to the Morocco when Morocco was not part of the OAU, African Union. They were out, and there were a lot of messages and misconception that Moroccans don't want to be part of Africa. That was 2005. And for me, it was strange because what I was seeing in Morocco was different from what I was hearing about Morocco. A country that don't want to be part of Africa is now training African students in their numbers. And whenever you speak to Moroccans, they let you know that, yes, though per the color, there are differences, but we are all one. So this was contrary to what I was hearing about Morocco. And what actually motivated me to write this book was what I discovered when I started reading the speeches of His Majesty. Already I knew that, and I'm a testimony, I'm a beneficiary of his policy and his Pan-African, policies and all that. But when I read his speeches and I found out how strong he speaks about Africa, how passionate he is about Africa, I felt like, no, I think a lot of Africans don't know His Majesty the way we know him. We know he gives scholarship to African students, he helps African countries, but the level of his passion and love for Africa, we don't know. Personally, I lived in Morocco, I enjoy his generosity, I saw what he's doing, but I never knew him that much until I began to read his speeches, and I realized, no, he is very more African than we know, more even than most of the African leaders. So that is why I personally wanted to share this with people. And anyone that has read this book, from the time I launched the English version in Ghana to the last time I launched in Morocco here, people who called me are actually surprised by the words of His Majesty and the passion that he speaks for Africa and defend Africa. So that is one thing that actually motivated me, because if what I saw in his speeches is only what I experienced here in Morocco, I thought, okay, fine, this is all that I knew him to be. But I discovered something beyond what he's doing for Africa. And I felt like other Africans have to know what His Majesty is saying. They have to actually understand him and be ready to partner him to be able to fight for Africans' prosperity and Africans' respect at the global level. And that is why this book came about.
Okay. تحدثتم وقلتم بأنكم رجعتم لكل الخطب الملكية. هل قرأتم كل الخطب الملكية منذ توليه العرش جلالة الملك إلى حدود الساعة أو لا إلى حدود كتابة كتابكم؟
Yeah, I started this project in 2019, and I gave myself 20 years. Like, I covered 20 years speeches of His Majesty from 1999 to the 20th Fedi throne. So that's because this book, we have series. That's why we have the first edition. So may God grant His Majesty long life. We have more books coming about him, because since we have discovered this wisdom, we don't want to stop sharing with Africans. So I read 20 good years speeches of His Majesty for this particular book.
كيف روجتم لفكرة إعدادكم لكتاب في هذا الشأن؟ كيف روجتم له وسط الأفارقة، وسط طلاب أو أصدقائك الأفارقة؟
Yeah, I think the book itself, every African identified themselves with the book because of the title of the book. The book is not for only Moroccans, it's not for Ghanaians, it's for Africa. And the title, Echoing the Voice of Africa, we Africans feel like our voices are not heard at the international level. So anyone that sees the book is actually, as Africans, are attracted to know what is in the book. So the book is already promoting itself. And also, we are also trying to make sure that we put this book in the hands of many African youth. So we started from Ghana. Today we are in Morocco. Fortunately for us, in Morocco here, we have students from over 40 different African countries studying in Morocco and living in Morocco. So here is also one of the best platform or countries to put this book in the hands of all African youth. From here, we'll go to other different African countries to launch this book. And like I said, during the launch, we are going to have the Arabic version of the book so that we can put this book in the hands of many African youth without any obstacle. So this is the plan, and we are going to do that. And we need a lot of people to partner us for this mission, because it's a mission that I want this mission to live beyond me. That even when I'm not there, this can be pushed. And we need all hands on board to make sure that we send this message to every African on this continent and beyond.
هل وجدتم بعض العراقيل أو لا بعض الصعوبات في إعداد هذا الكتاب؟
As compared to other African leaders that I'm working on, it was easier for me to work on the Book of His Majesty, because I think I was actually inspired by His Majesty to do further research on other African leaders to find out whether they've also said something which is hidden in their speech that can benefit the continent. So I compare this to other projects that I'm working on. It was easier for me because getting the speeches of His Majesty was easier for me to get the speeches to work on it. The only obstacle that I had was the language, because I have to make sure that the translated version of what His Majesty said in Arabic is not, there's no error. Because His Majesty, His ways, you cannot, so you have to be very careful to make sure that you get the right translation. So that was one of the challenges. And also arranging the book, the quotes under the theme, because I didn't also want to people to lose interest in reading the book. So it's not just about a quote. It must make sense. It must be like reading a storybook so that you have interest in reading. So it took a lot of work. But for me, this is the work I did out of love, my admiration for His Majesty, and I was inspired for this. So for me, any challenge that I faced was not a challenge for me. It was an opportunity for me to do something for my continent and also to show appreciation for His Majesty, because it was through my education in Morocco, through the generosity of His Majesty, that I could even read French. So I did it out of love. So any challenge that I faced was not even a challenge for me at all. I did it out of love, and I did it, and I'm happy I did it.
قلت في بداية أو في تقديمي في بداية اللقاء أنكم تعدون سفيراً غير مسمى. كيف ستروجون للثقافة المغربية لما كتبتموه في أو ما وضعتموه في كتابكم؟ كيف ستتمكنون من ترويجه على مستوى غانا وعلى مستوى دول إفريقيا أخرى؟
Thank you so much. I think promoting Morocco did not start with the book. It was my promoting of Morocco that brought me to the stage where I wrote the book. Because when I finished school and I went to Ghana, for us, all students who have benefited from the relationship that exists between Ghana and Morocco, to further strengthen the relationship between our two countries, I formed the Ghana-Morocco Old Student Association with the objective of organizing an event to promote Morocco in Ghana and also promote Ghana in Morocco, just as I'm doing here in Morocco. So I serve as the president of the association, and in Ghana, people think that I'm more Moroccan than Ghanaian, because on occasions like the Moroccan National Day, I would dress like a Moroccan, just to show them, the Moroccan culture. So this is what we've been doing. We've been promoting Morocco. We've been organizing events with the Moroccan communities in Ghana and all that to promote Morocco. So now, when you go to Ghana, unlike other Francophone countries where people know Morocco already, people didn't know Morocco that much. But with activities that we organize as the Ghana-Morocco Old Student Association, we've been promoting Morocco in Ghana and and it's been very effective. So it was even as a result of promoting Morocco that this book project came on, because we now recommended His Majesty shared what he's doing for African students to Ghanaian students in Ghana. And as a result of that, the Ghanaian students recognized His Majesty by honoring him as Noble of Change for the change he's doing in the life of African youth. And it was as a result of that, His Majesty, just as he always do, he's very passionate about African youth, so he wrote back to us. And when I wanted to write an article to communicate to the Ghanaian public what His Majesty is doing for African youth, that I didn't find a book that contained his quotes, and led me to my research into his speech. And now we have the book to further promote Morocco, not only in Ghana, but also in the whole of the continent.
أوكي. كيف لامستم في خطب جلالة الملك عزيمته أو استعداده لمد الجسور بين دول إفريقيا؟ قلتم أنكم لامستم من خلال خطبه أنه يخاطب الأفارقة، يخاطب الشعوب الأفريقية ويؤكد لهم أنهم قادرون على تخطي الصعوبات وعلى تخطي كل التحديات والوصول والتغيير والوصول إلى التنمية. كيف لامستم ذلك في خطبه أو حتى في سفرياته إلى دول إفريقيا؟
In fact, what actually surprised me was that I found His Majesty's speeches to be like when Africa was fighting for emancipation, freedom. That is when you find African leaders, when they speak to the whole Africa. Because Nkrumah at that time was not only speaking to Ghanaians. Whenever he speaks to Africa, the whole continent. And I thought at this stage where we have all gotten our independence, the speeches should focus only on each countries, like most African leaders they do. When they speak, the focus is on their country. But I find a very different aspect of that when I read His Majesty's speeches, where I see him always talking to Africa, talking about African unity, talking about African auto-sufficiency that we have to be on our own, talking for Africa. I mean, cooperation and all that, South-South cooperation and all that, trying to let us know that our collective effort is what we need to be able to build a prosperous Africa we want. And it is very true. We were told this years back, and Africa failed to listen, to unite. But His Majesty in his speeches is always preaching this message of unity, and has positioned Morocco in a way that Morocco is now not only preaching unity, but also have policies that promote unity. And let me tell you something about myself and my experience in Morocco. And I think most of us, we have not paid attention to it. What His Majesty is doing with the scholarship that he gives to foreign students, this is what he does. Personally, when I was in Ghana, even in Ghana, I speak Akan. We have so many tribes. Those who don't speak my language, I never felt like they were my family. They are Ghanaians though, but they are not my family. It's only when I meet you speak my language, then I feel like, okay, you are my brother. Now, I'm a Christian. We have Muslims in Ghana. That time, I don't see them to be those who don't practice the same faith as mine to be like my family. Now, when I came to Morocco, I suddenly learned that no, every Ghanaian, whether you are from the north, south, east, and west, whether you are Muslim, Christian, non-believer, you are my family. It didn't end there. When I went to the faculty, now I find every African as my brother. Every African as my brother. Yeah. And this is what Morocco is doing for us. So now, that is why I've done what I've done, because if I didn't come to Morocco, I'll be thinking only for Ghanaians. I would have kept this book for only Ghanaians. But now Morocco gave me that exposure that now it's easy for me to connect with people from any part of Africa, even those that I have never met before, because of people that I've met in those countries that I've met here in Morocco. So His Majesty is not only talking about African unity, but with the policies that he has put in place, he's promoting African unity. And I always tell people that, listen, give us the next 5 to 10 years, it will be easier for African leaders to meet and talk about African unity, because if I'm the president of Ghana, I have met people who are a president of Ivory Coast who also studied in Morocco, president of Burundi who studied in Morocco. It will be easy for us to understand each other and talk about African unity and truly unite without having any fear.
لا أجد كلمة لأشكرك وأعبر لك عن شكري فعلا لكلامك الجميل عن المغرب. شكرا لك. لكن أقول في هذه اللحظة وبعد أن وقعتم كتابكم هذا faire écho à la voix de l'Afrique، لابد وأن لديكم مشاريع أخرى تستعدون للعمل عليها هنا في المغرب وأيضا في بلدكم غانا.
Yes, we have projects, and when I say we, just as I discovered in the speech of His Majesty, this is not all about individuals, it's about the collective interest, it's about the collective effort. So I set out the Global African Heritage Foundation to champion this project. So we actually, for this particular project, we intend to donate books to students to be able for them to be able to have access to this knowledge. So I was in Fes, where I schooled, right after my book launch on Monday, to go and donate copies of the book to my university in Fes. Today, I'll be at the UMCSP to also present the book and also donate copies of the book to them. And we intend to go to other universities, not only here in Morocco, but beyond the continent, especially outside the continent, to be able to put this book in the hands of the youth. People who have read the book have said that these books are very important for African leaders as well, are very important for civil society and opinion leaders. But for me, as an African youth, I want to make sure that we put this book in the hands of every African youth, because just as His Majesty rightly said, they are the future of Africa. They are the ones to build Africa. If they get the right knowledge, the right inspiration, then we can develop Africa together. And that's the project that we have. We are going to make sure that, first of all, we translate this book to different languages so that Africans can have access. Now, go to every African country and make sure that we put these books to the African youth and get them have access to the book. We also intend to have Pan-African Youth Club in our universities, whereby we create programs to discuss what we have in the book. Because we don't want this to become like a storybook where people can just read and forget it, or maybe when a journalist wants to write an article, they will just open and get one quote to write an article. No, we must actually discuss this. We must actually let this thing get into our hearts and inspired by this word to be able to make the content we want. So this is not just about the book. It's about a project that we want this project to inspire a lot of Africans to be able to build the African that we want. Yes.
Then لا يسعني إلا أن أتمنى لك التوفيق. Good luck. وسعيدة أنني التقيت بك وتحدثت معك حول كتابك وهواجسك التي لا زالت تخالج نفسك من أجل الإعداد للمستقبل والروابط الأفريقية المغربية. أتمنى لك التوفيق. شكرا لوجودك معنا بيتر. شكرا للقائك وشكرا لوجودك معنا. شكرا لكلامك الجميل. أتمنى أن نلقاك في فرصة أخرى في مشاريع جديدة إن شاء الله ونجاحات أخرى. شكرا لك. شكرا متابعينا الكرام.